Hi, thanks for joining us for That Larimer County Show. My name is Denny LaRue, Larimer County Community Information Manager. My co-host is Neil Gluckman, Assistant County Manager. And our guest today is Jim Drendel. And Jim is the Manager for Child and Family Services at Larimer County.
Hi.
So Jim, you know, what Denny just said, the title, what exactly do you do?
Well, I'm the division manager of about 140 employees, and we do child abuse and neglect, which is our major work. We get about 5,000 referrals a year from Larimer County. But we also have an additional work that most people are kind of unaware of working with juvenile delinquents. And we get about 1,000 referrals on juvenile delinquents a year also.
Okay. Well, today we're looking at a specific program, the Red Team program. Jim, can you give us a quick overview of that program?
Yeah, sure. We're looking at our outcomes, and our commissioners are always concerned, and we do meet regularly with them about outcomes. And so,
what year are we talking about?
Probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
So we decided that we weren't doing as well as we wanted to. So I did a kind of a search, actually a nationwide search, because we weren't doing that well in the state, and found a place in Olmsted County in Minnesota. It's actually in Rochester, Minnesota, famous Mayo Clinic, and they were doing exceptionally well. Matter of fact, they haven't had a re-abused child in years.
So the outcomes you're talking about are re-abused children?
Re-abuse of children is the major outcome. There's some others, but that was the major. So we went there and visited and asked them, how are you doing this? And they told us about Red Teams. We actually had 2 trips to Minnesota to visit them, and then they came out and visited us probably about a half dozen times to help train us on Red Team.
So just to differentiate, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but before you did it as an individual caseworker, I don't know if we're using the right title, would decide what's going to happen next.
Right.
And this, we're talking about a team.
It's a team group decision making, and that's what they went to. Instead of having me decide what a worker should do, it's a group decision about what should we do on this type of case.
And the advantages between an individual and a team?
Well, individual, you're trying to think of all the things you should ask the person who's calling you or reporting it, versus our group decision. We look at criminal background, we look at former work on the computer, as we'll see, and much more discussion. Sometimes I would get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning being asked to make that decision, probably not thinking the greatest at 3 in the morning, and it could have been delayed. It wasn't an emergency. So now we delay those at 3 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the morning, and then have a group decide what should be done.
It's more synergistic. Some will have insights in something that another might not have, and I would assume you get a better...
Well, even some of them may have been involved in this family before, which really, really helps. I mean, if I'm making a decision, I surely don't know the family at all, versus this group, and 2 or 3 of them could have been involved with the family.
So we'll be seeing that in the video in just a second, but for those viewers at home that aren't aware of these issues, when we talk about re-abused children, we're talking about calls that come in to your department about situations where people are afraid children might be being abused.
Yes.
And so how do you deal with that? How do you handle it, is what we're going to see.
And we're talking about physical and emotional.
Physical, emotional, sexual, or neglect. Most of our calls are actually, 70% of the calls to Larimer and nationwide are about neglect of children, not actually physical abuse or sexual abuse. It's, you know, and the difference between poverty and neglect is minimal.
Okay. Well, let's watch the video and get a sense of what we're talking about, and then we'll come back and ask you some more questions about that.
And the reporter is a non-mandated reporter. Okay, who wants to read?
I will.
Sue?
All right, so this is the Smith family. 4th grader John Smith. Mom's name is unknown. Father is Joe Smith. Reporting party is stating that her child reported that John's mother holds him down and fills his mouth with soap and hits him.
And who is this coming from?
Coming from
John's
classmate
friend.
of John's.
Okay.
So
mom.
another, like, 4th grader.
The mom of another 4th grader.
Okay, so that kid told his mom, who
Yeah.
is calling it.
And then the reporting party states that John's father's always in a bad mood, spits on him, yells and chases him around the house. RP's child reported that John has had bruises in the past from being hit. RP says that John sometimes has to go to bed without dinner if he's bad.
He's trusting his friend. To be talking to his friend at school, I think that's probably a good thing.
He's in school.
Mm.
That's always a good thing.
That's good. You can talk to him. Okay, is that the whole referral? Is there anything else?
No, John and RP's child have been in the same class at this school for the past 3 years.
Oh,
That's good.
same school.
So then I wonder if this is the first time that this has ever been told to her son.
Mentioned this before.
Then for strengths, the RP's unsure of strengths, doesn't really know the family.
Okay.
And then solutions, RP would like this child to be checked on because they're worried that the child seems scared to her child.
I'm going to put that under gray unless someone disagrees. Is John scared to go home?
Right.
Or is that what his friend is assuming?
And then the scaling, the RP would rate the child's safety at a 1 or a 2 when he's home with his parents.
1 or a 2, that's pretty low.
It is very low.
I guess I'd be curious about why it's that low.
Especially since the parent, the reporting parties never met
Right.
the parents.
Right. But the friends, the 2 little boys have been friends for several years at school.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Susan, I found one prior referral
Okay.
from 2011 that was not assigned. That was screened out. This was a neighbor calling that they were concerned because they heard yelling and it was awfully late at night and they know that some kids live in the home. But that was all the information we had, so that was screened out. In that referral, though, we do have the mother's name, which is Lisa.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I also pulled up the criminal history for Mom and for Dad. Mom just has a driving under suspension from 2008, and Joe does not have any criminal history.
Okay, is that the whole?
There was one other sentence on the report, which is,
Okay.
reporting parties stated that their family would be willing to help this child if needed. So that's it.
Nice.
That's good.
Great. So I guess I'm wondering if this mom has ever actually talked to John herself, seeing as the kids, play together or at school together, if she's ever actually talked to him. Because it does say that John has had bruises, so wondering if she's ever seen that, or is that just stuff she's heard from her son?
And I think, yeah, with that, like just noting that it's third-hand information and that sometimes things can be lost in translation, I think is important.
It does say that there were bruises in the past, so when? Like, so who saw them and when? And was it,
Right.
did her child tell her that, or did somebody else tell?
How does she know?
Yeah.
And actually, who left the bruises? There's some, wording in here of concern about both Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering if it's not a strength that he's been in the same school for the past 3 years and we've never had a call
Yeah.
about him having bruises or concern
From a mandated reporter at the
from a
school or anywhere
mandated
else.
reporter. Okay, any other discussion? Are we ready to make a disposition on this?
Looks like we have concern for physical abuse, whether in the past or present.
I think the concern that I was capturing, the only thing that jumped out to me as being danger harm was that he's had bruises allegedly from being hit before. The rest of it I thought was complicating because parents can discipline their children. It may be that it's getting a little bit scary and maybe the parents could use some help with getting some tools. But if he is getting bruises left on him, we should look into it. What do you guys think for a response time on this?
Well, since
For
there's no
disposition.
allegation of him having a bruise today, I don't think it's as big of a concern.
And then that it's third party, so we
Right,
don't know for
third-party
sure,
information.
since it's the little boy, her son telling
I think we
her.
could fit this on the FAR track.
Yeah.
Family assessment response.
Do
Seems
a 5-day.
appropriate.
5-day?
Yeah.
5-day FAR?
Sounds good.
Do we want to make sure that we call the reporting party? I think that's an important next step for Alyssa, and call Mom to make an appointment.
Follow up on those gray area questions.
And the gray
that we
area,
had.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, 5-day FAR, Alyssa.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We've been watching a reenactment of the Red Team program, a program of child and family services at Larimer County. It was a reenactment of an actual case with, of course, the names changed. One of the questions I had for you, Jim, is that, you know, as opposed to you being called, like you said, at 3 in the morning before, now you have a team of people working on this. It's more labor intensive.
Yes.
Can you still get through the number of cases? I know your outcomes are pretty good.
Yeah, it is more labor intensive. We actually weren't looking for speed. Speed in child abuse can make mistakes.
Okay.
We're really looking for, I think most of us feel, that if we touch a family or a child's life, they should never be re-abused. And that's a hard thing to do. We don't have crystal balls. They don't even work sometimes if we had them.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is, okay, how do you get the most in-depth look? How do you, for example, they made that a FAR, which is a family assessment response.
Mm-hmm.
That's different than what we used to do. We never used to do that at all. And so what that means is we're going to go ask the family, what can we do to help? Do you need help in that? Because in the old days it was the blame and shame. We would go out and say, we heard there's bruises on your son's arm. You know, we can't have that. Which is a blaming,
Mm-hmm.
versus, hey, are you having any problems? Are there things we could help you with? Are you having trouble with your child's behavior? Because that could be it by itself.
Now I recognize, recognizing that was a reenactment, and it was probably about 5 minutes. I would assume most of the cases take a little bit more than 5 minutes, that you thoroughly go through this. One of the things that I sensed, even though this was a reenactment, was balance. You know, you have to balance that the child was hurt, but you also have to balance that there are the circumstances that, you know, is this something that is critical, or is this something that can wait, or is this something that we can work out by some type of family counseling? I mean, you're approaching this from a lot of different angles.
Right. Which is different than the traditional child welfare, and we brought it to the state, and now the state is really copying us, of how do you change the way the blame and shame. Almost all parents want to be good parents. And so when things get out of control, that's when things kind of happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Something else I noticed in this reenactment and in your cases is that you have the added benefit of access to history.
Right.
So you can look up and see if there's been situations with this family before, with this child before. That must help a lot.
Well, and you notice on this reenactment, there was no criminal record really for either parent. The reporting party reliability probably is somewhat questionable, and that's why I think in their discussion they were trying to figure out, what if it's true? But, you know, it's another little boy reporting to a mom who's reporting to us. So you've got to put that all in perspective.
So let's talk about, they mentioned mandated versus non-mandated reporters. Can you explain that?
Yeah, in our laws in Colorado, we have a pretty long list of mandated reporters, but includes mostly medical school personnel. You heard them talk about, well, we haven't had a report from the school for 3 years. He's been in the same school. We do have a lot of what I would call school hoppers. Mm-hmm. So if they're in multiple schools, that's kind of a warning sign in some ways. Mm-hmm. So if he would have been in 3 different schools in those 3 years, it would have been more of a, we better look at this, versus he's in 3 years. The teachers of school have seen him, no reports. That's a good sign. That's a strength for us looking at children.
A couple of things I picked up on in the video. One was that they decided to do something within a 5-day period. Now, is there everything from the day that this happens to the 5-day?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Neil, because we have 3 categories. Immediates, which don't go to Red Team. Okay, immediates mean we're probably going out with the police right now, within an hour. Then you have the 3-day, which we're actually not sure why the state has immediates. You really could have immediates in 5 days. Mm-hmm. But there's a 3-day. That doesn't include weekends, so if you get a 3-day and Friday, it's really Friday, because Monday is too late. So the 5-day actually only counts work days, which allows us, if you get a call on Thursday, you've got till Wednesday to get out there. And so that's the categories the state has made in our rules.
It's a triage.
Right.
And they had some jargon in there. I think most of them they will be on the bottom of the screen, but they use the word scaling.
Yes, good. That's something actually copied from Minnesota. When we started it, we say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really you're not worried at all, and 1 being you're really worried, and that's why they reacted to the reporting party saying a 1 or 2 for his safety. When you look at the scaling, what Minnesota said, and it helps, schools have actually commented to us of, oh boy, you know, I would say he's a 9 when they're calling it in. That allows us to say, well, if he's really safe and it's not dangerous, we can make it a 5-day in that. In this case, the reporting party, the reliability of it, we even though they said 1 to 2, it didn't seem terribly serious other than the family needs help.
And the mandated parties are probably more used to dealing with the scale. And
yeah, they would call us more
it.
Often than
so one question before we go to the second video is that your outcomes are good. As I mentioned earlier, it's a 98% now of children who are not re-abused because of this program.
Right.
Where were you before?
When we started, former Commissioner Cathay Reynolds and I, we were at 88%, and I agreed with Cathay, obviously, that that's not acceptable. The federal goal is 94%. So if you look at that, we said we've got to find something better. This is not good services to children and families. So we're at 98, have been almost 5 years now.
That's fabulous.
And we're pretty happy with the Minnesota model, even though it isn't as efficient maybe as, it's not speedy.
Right, but it works, it's effective.
We're going to see a second video now.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that, see what that looks like.
Referral number 2. We got a mandated reporter.
Mom has custody in California but was arrested for drugs and is now in jail.
Okay.
The child was sent to live with his father here by DHS in California.
Is that a strength or gray?
Seems kind of gray.
Right now it's gray.
Okay.
It's unknown if father has formal custody of the child. The child attended Fun City Daycare until November. Father couldn't pay for daycare, and daycare did not have a grant for the bill, so father had to take the child out of the daycare. The father has Jason now at Sunnyside Daycare Center. He's not getting food stamps, Medicaid, or CCAP.
I wonder if he knows how to access those services.
Yeah, I wonder why not.
It also says that Dad doesn't have birth certificate for Jason.
That could explain a lot
Absolutely.
about why he's not getting services.
Benefits, right.
The next sentence is he's having trouble getting the birth certificate from California.
I wonder if there's a California caseworker that maybe talk to.
There was a referral from DHS, so that'd be a good next step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a strength, that the DHS in California sent him to live with the father. There's a level of trust there. Did I miss something?
No, we don't have any information on what happened.
What happened in
I
California?
feel like it's hard to know for sure that it's a strength.
Right.
Only because we don't really know much about the situation or the circumstances. Like maybe because mom was in jail, they felt like that was the only place he could go. So I feel like maybe
Gray.
he could stay in Gray
Yeah.
for now until we find out more.
I wonder too if was Jason like part of some kind of drug deal? Was there any abuse or neglect that he experienced while he was there?
Mm-hmm.
And what's his relationship been like with his father? Like, did he have a relationship with his father before this? And
Good question.
So I guess that's so another gray is how long is mom in jail?
She went to jail for drugs.
right.
Yep, it does.
Yeah, so I kind of wonder
For
what
how long?
that's about. Like,
What
what
kind
sort
of
of drug
drugs?
charges? Absolutely.
Was it marijuana or meth or heroin?
Is there more
Is
information?
there more information?
There's more in the referral. It says father's about to lose his job because he's been called to pick up Jason from school for being sick. Jason's acting out at school.
Acting out in school.
He's aggressive towards his teachers, spitting, hitting, and slapping a teacher in the face.
You know, get a strength that Michael has a job.
Michael doesn't have transportation, but his boss picks him up from the motel.
Michael and Jason have a place to live. Michael's boss helps with transportation.
I'd be curious if he has any other supports or family in the area, other than just his boss.
And then the last sentence of the report said that Father is very stressed at this time. Reporting party believes that the child needs mental health services also.
So I just want to be clear. Was father already living here, and then they sent the kid with him from California, or is that right?
Like how long has he been in Colorado?
Yeah.
Kinda?
Yeah.
Is that the end of the referral?
That's it. Yep.
Is there history?
There's no history.
No.
Oh, none?
Mm-mm.
What about criminal?
He did file for custody, so he has an open domestic relations case.
But no criminal history?
No criminal history.
When did he file for that?
2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a huge strength.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
Agreed.
like he needs some help with some other resources, though.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it would be a good family visitor.
I don't know. Maybe we should assign it.
What would
we
you?
assign?
What would be
Yeah, what are you
allegations?
worried
What
about
would
that a
your concern be?
caseworker would do?
I mean, it just feels like the dad's really stressed and could use some help.
Well, how about this? If we send out the family visitor and they go out and they re-refer it back to us since they are a mandated reporter and they have worries and concerns, we could always assign it as a 5-day FAR.
Right.
So maybe they could help dad, like, get on TANF and get some of the financial
Medicaid.
support he needs and maybe like mental health evaluation for the kiddo or behavioral stuff.
Maybe even connect with a community life center.
It's a great
That's
idea.
good. Diversion
Yeah, I like
funds.
that.
Oh.
Let's put that as maybe a next step for the
Yeah.
family visitor.
You're gonna move the next
Yeah, what
step
I'll do,
up.
I think sending a family visitor is a good way to make sure that dad has what he needs.
I'm glad he went to court. I think that demonstrates that he's
That's huge.
he's
That's
making an
huge.
effort for some permanency for his
Mm-hmm.
child.
Yeah. Nice job, guys.
Here's a father that very obviously needs help, without a blame and shame. Matter of fact, he's doing all the right things, trying to take custody of his son, and he's in a strange environment.
And you have
there's that
community
trauma.
partners now that you're.
Oh, yes. Minnesota had what they call a third track. So Colorado doesn't really have a recognized third track. They allow us to do it. So this track means we don't have the resources to go out on every call that we would get. But if we're still concerned, what we do is we contract now with several agencies that we've trained, and they go out as what I call a friendly visitor. They'll call it a family visitor. We have a dispute of whether they should be friendly or not, I guess. But we go out and have an agency go out for us and offer help. So we're going to have a family visitor go out and visit and offer and say, what can we do to help? If they think things are really not good out there, we have a requirement that they call us back, and then we would send a caseworker. So it's got that checks and balances. They mentioned the Community Life Center, the Matthews House, which is open now. So dad can go there and get resources. They have workers that'll help him. So we are set up much more in a friendly way. It's taken the stress off some workers also, which has helped.
But I'm still thinking that this is a really hard job.
Oh yeah, in my level of work, I was a caseworker, and my job as the division manager is a piece of cake compared to having to go knock on doors and that. And I still think mine's fairly stressful. But workers, I can't praise them enough. The hard workers that we have is amazing.
What should people do if they suspect a child is being abused?
Suspecting abuse, we have a Larimer County hub. You can go on our website and you can actually email a report in. We've had those. Or you can call the phone number that's listed on the website.
And that's another part. We talked about those that find these issues on another child, but if you need help as a parent, I would also suggest that there's various resources around Larimer County for that as well.
We do a lot of what we call voluntary services now.
Great, and they can find out about that again on the
Just
website.
call on the website, call the hub,
Call the hub.
ask for help.
The hub.
And what's the future of the Red Team type services? Where do you go from here?
It's very interesting. Red Team is now being proposed as all counties have to do it. When we started years ago, we just did it because we wanted better safety, and now there's 5 counties doing it besides us. And I would say within a year or two, all 64 counties will be doing it, a version of it.
Well, you mentioned you had other great outcomes as well.
Yes, we right now have the lowest number of kids in institutional care in this state. We're the second lowest in kids in foster care, and we're percentage-wise the highest of kids with relatives. So those are 3 things that were part of the Minnesota model.
And this is from about basically 4 years ago of being pretty well near the bottom.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say, I
Bottom,
want to rephrase
middle
it.
bottom. No,
Yeah.
I would agree.
And now
we weren't
being-
good enough for sure.
And being on the top.
Yeah.
And doing a good job.
Moving in that direction on all outcomes.
Are there other counties in Colorado that are also seeing their numbers go up as they institute this program?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not an automatic. It's still a philosophical thing of, is the community the solution or is the agency the solution?
Okay.
And we've taken the stance that the community is the solution. We cannot do this without the community.
In the community, these nonprofits, other agencies have to be partners with us.
Right.
They want to be invested.
Yeah, and they are.
And they are.
really are.
Yep.
Very good message, very strong message. Jim, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here today. Thanks for joining us for That Larimer County Show.